sports, being very successful. He had been in the army, and after coming back from that, he had just married. His wife was pregnant, and they were in Kenya for his job. There, he contracted polio from one day to the next. It was a very severe case, couldn't be worse. At first, he was unable to speak, to breathe, or to swallow. Eventually, he learned how to swallow and to speak, but he never could breathe on his own. They returned to England, and there he was hospitalized and placed on a ventilator and given maybe 2 months to live. In fact, at first he wanted to die. He would ask people to please unplug his ventilator. He didn't just ask his doctors, he asked anybody who came by in the corridor, can you just unplug that thing? But eventually, he decided that he was not just going to wait to die. He wanted to live. He wanted to live well. So with the help of his wife, Diana, and his scientist friend, Teddy Hall was his name, he made the radical decision that he would be included in society. He was going to leave the hospital. His medical doctor said, well, then you'll die even quicker. But staying in bed was not an option for him, and even staying in bed at home on a ventilator was not how he wanted to live. He wanted to be out and about. He wanted to do things, to travel the world. So he described what he would need to make that happen to his scientist friend, whose name was Dr. Teddy Hall. Teddy. And they co-invented the wheelchair that has a built-in battery that supplies oxygen to a ventilator. They invented a couple of other things as well on the basis of what Robin Cavendish said he needed. He needed to do some things like turn off the radio, turn on the TV, call somebody on the phone. So they co-invented a modified system whereby you could do these things by just moving your head to the left or the right. That comes from Robin Cavendish. They also co-invented a modified station wagon that could accommodate him in his wheelchair without being placed with the suitcases in the back. He said, I don't want to look out the back window. I want to see what you guys see. So the station wagon pretty soon was not just having a hydraulic lift, but it accommodated that wheelchair for him to look out the window and participate in conversations and everything. It didn't go so well during their first trip, which was to Spain, because the portable ventilator that was installed blew up. It happened when they were in the outskirts of Barcelona, which was very rural at that time. So they parked in a bypass, and the ventilator could only work now if it was hand-operated. His wife Diana said, don't anybody go to sleep, because we have to take shifts. Take shifts while what happens? Well, they had to go to town, use a landline, call Teddy Hall in England and say, you have to build another one of these things and ship it to us by airplane, immediately. Well, that took a while. And Teddy Hall indeed set to work building this new machine and getting it on the plane to Barcelona. That episode actually ended very well. The local people heard about it. They brought food, cakes, a guitarist, a priest just in case, and they brought their company while everybody waited for the replacement machine. So they really all had a great vacation. over the years, Robin Cavendish became a great speaker. He spoke to the medical community at their conferences, and he was a motivational speaker for people who had mobility limitations. He urged the community to stop keeping polio victims warehoused in hospitals. Don't develop better heart-lung machines, he told them. He was up there on the stage with those medical doctors. He was in his wheelchair. He said, don't keep doing that, but adopt and improve the system of wheelchair assistance. Eventually, he received grants to work on his ideas, inventing these pieces of technology to enable people like himself to turn on equipment and do all these things that so many of us take for granted. He even developed a program called Refresh. It was a program for people with polio or other limitations to spend time on vacation by the beach, enjoying the sun, the water, and the company of friends and family, and to play games. Ultimately, Robin Cavendish lived a long and active life for 35 years after contacting polio. At the time of his death, which, by the way, he also decided when that would happen, because eventually your lungs break down when you are on a ventilator for a very, very long time. So he decided when that would happen. And at the time of his death, he held the record of the person who had lived the longest as what they call a responaut, somebody who is self-sufficient with the equipment that is required to breathe, to respire, a responaut. And it is this invention of his that eventually made possible that a genius like Stephen Hawking could live and develop incredible achievements as he did, most of which were accomplished after he got his ALS diagnosis. Now, yes, technologies like the integrated wheelchair are not inexpensive. And I dream of the days when the billions or trillions that have been amassed by the richest people in the world using only the profit motive will be put to humanitarian use to make lives better for all who live. Those lyrics of Billie Holiday's famous song, Crazy He Calls Me, the first word is crazy. Those lyrics say that the impossible may take a little while, but how impossible is it, really, to put great ideas from inventive minds together with the abundance of money? It just requires putting people's lives at the center. All the people's lives, putting love at the center. Now here's something else you may not know. As it turns out, Robin Cavendish's son, he had only the one son who was conceived while he contacted, not while he contacted, but before he contacted polio. His son is Jonathan Cavendish. And he grew up to become a famous film producer. In fact, he's the one who produced those movies that I'm sure you all know, the Bridget Jones movies. That's Jonathan Cavendish. And recently, he made a film, it was a documentary really, it's called Breathe, about the amazing life of his father and his family. I don't think that the film includes that little episode that was very critical, where Jonathan was running around the house and he was in his father's room and he accidentally tripped over the cord that had the ventilator plugged in, and he ran back out of the room, and luckily somebody else came by just in time to just plug it back in. I don't think that's in the film, but that is true. And it's a film that's really worth seeing. I'm planning to feature it in an upcoming adult religious education session here at Beacon. It was, I think it came out in 2017. Now, where does this leave us when we zoom out from these examples of incredible people who have been at the center of ideas to develop equipment and circumstances to drastically improve the quality of life of people with mobility constraints? And if you think about people like Stephen Hawking, who have made incredible contributions to humanity. These kinds of things remind us that indeed all are equal in dignity and rights, which is embedded in one of our principles, and that those with so-called disabilities, well, actual disabilities, but other disadvantages, like being poor, being in the wrong part of the world, having the wrong gender, that all of these disadvantages, if they are redressed, it's the people who have them who must be part of the conversation. Or better yet, they must lead the conversation. And those fruitful conversations involve listening, as the medical and engineering community did finally when they were listening to the speeches that Robin Cavendish gave all around the world. And aren't all of these things an application of our 6 fundamental UU values that are centered on love? That principle, nothing about us without us, sticks in my mind today when the destiny of so many people victimized by military invasion, violence, and exploitation is victimized, is jeopardized by profit-seeking approaches to the problems. I'm thinking, of course, of the people of the Ukraine, and also those in Gaza, Haiti, Congo, and many other places, and many circumstances around the world. There are so many dimensions of injustice and inequality that can be redressed. So let us keep being courageous and work on that. The beloved society to which we aspire is one where people who are at a physical or other disadvantage are acknowledged and listened to and are part of the conversation to improve their lives. To build the house where love dwells, as today's anthem puts it, and as Rumi's timeless lyrics that were in our spirit music put it. May we see restoration and universal application of such radical inclusion. May it be so. Let us breathe for a few moments. And now please join in body or spirit to sing